Have you ever heard that the Bible speaks of giants? Not as symbols or metaphors, but as actual beings of enormous size and incredible power, whose origins are shrouded in mystery. These figures are known as the Nephilim, mentioned briefly in Scripture, yet their presence raises deep questions that remain unanswered to this day. In just a few lines, the Bible introduces these beings in a way that feels almost accidental, as if revealing a hidden truth unintentionally. But beneath those few words lies an entire world of theories, ancient manuscripts, and mystical interpretations that point to something much more profound, perhaps even celestial or extraterrestrial. Who exactly were the Nephilim? Were they the offspring of fallen angels and mortal women? Did they really walk the earth? And perhaps most intriguing, why is this topic so rarely discussed in churches today? In this video, we'll explore the story behind these mysterious giants, from the ancient book of Genesis to hidden writings that were left out of the Bible. We'll follow the clues that point to a shocking possibility that the Nephilim may hold the key to understanding a divine event that changed humanity forever. Let's begin by looking at where it all started, in the early chapters of Genesis, right before the Great Flood. Part 1. The Enigma of Genesis 6. Sons of God and daughters of men. In Genesis chapter 6, just before the flood narrative, there is a short but incredibly puzzling passage. When people began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. They took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Genesis 6:1-2. Then, in verse 4, we read, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." The word Nephilim in Hebrew can mean the fallen ones, or those who bring others down. But who exactly were these sons of God? One interpretation says they were simply the descendants of Seth, the righteous lineage of Adam. But a much older and more controversial theory identifies them as fallen angels, celestial beings who descended to earth and took human women as their partners. This idea is detailed in ancient writings like the Book of Enoch, where these angels, known as the Watchers, are said to have descended from heaven, led by a figure named Semjaza. They broke divine laws by interfering with human life, marrying women and teaching humanity forbidden knowledge, sorcery, the secrets of the stars, weapon making, and more. Their children, the Nephilim, were said to be powerful, enormous beings with both spiritual and physical traits. Their existence, according to these texts, defied the natural order and deeply corrupted the human world. God, seeing the growing wickedness, decided to cleanse the earth, and thus came the flood. But did that flood really wipe them all out? We'll dig into that mystery in the next section. Part 2. After the flood, did the giants return? If the Great Flood was meant to cleanse the earth from the Nephilim and their influence, how do we explain their reappearance later in the Bible? In the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verse 33, when Moses sends spies to scout the promised land, they return terrified. "We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak, come from the Nephilim, we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. That statement implies that the Nephilim were still present after the flood. So, what happened? Here are a few possibilities. A second rebellion. More angels may have repeated the original sin, descending to earth once again to create new Nephilim. A surviving bloodline. Some theories suggest that one of Noah's son's wives carried Nephilim genes, allowing their legacy to survive the flood. Metaphorical use. Some scholars argue the term Nephilim was later used to describe tribes of very tall people or mighty warriors, not literal descendants of fallen angels. But here's where things get even more mysterious. Multiple groups in the Old Testament, like the Rephaim, Anakim, and Amim, are described as tribes of giants. They inhabited different regions and were so intimidating that entire Israelite armies feared them. Even the infamous Goliath, the Philistine warrior defeated by David, is described as a descendant of these giants. His height, armor, and combat skill far surpassed those of ordinary men. So, the question becomes, why does the Bible mention these beings so briefly and with such mystery? Is it because they were real, too real, and their truth was meant to stay hidden? Let's look deeper into the ancient and mystical interpretations in the next part. Part 3. Esoteric and alternative views on the Nephilim. Beyond the biblical text, the story of the Nephilim grows even more complex and more fascinating. The Book of Enoch, once widely read by early Christians, but later excluded from the official Bible, paints the Nephilim as the offspring of celestial beings who violated divine boundaries. These angels, the Watchers, were not only rebels, they were teachers of forbidden arts. They revealed to humans astrology and the movement of stars, weapon making and metallurgy, makeup and seduction techniques, occult knowledge once reserved for heavenly beings. In mystical traditions, the Nephilim are often seen not just as beings of flesh and blood, but as energetic or spiritual hybrids, carrying a corrupt vibration that influenced the human world. In fact, some esoteric schools suggest that the Nephilim were interdimensional entities who crossed the veil separating the physical and spiritual realms, symbols of divine rebellion, representing the fall of higher beings into material desire, or even the gods of earlier civilizations, reinterpreted through a monotheistic lens. Modern theories have also entered the conversation. Some propose that the Nephilim were actually ancient aliens, aligning with the idea of ancient astronauts who came from the stars and altered human history. Others see them as the missing link in understanding how humanity gained access to advanced knowledge in ancient times, from architecture to sacred geometry. So why was this knowledge silenced? Why were books like Enoch, Jubilees, and Jasher pushed aside and declared non-canonical? Perhaps these texts revealed too much. Perhaps the Nephilim weren't just a forgotten footnote in history, but a reminder of something humanity was never supposed to know. The story of the Nephilim raises more questions than answers, but maybe that's the point. They are more than ancient myths or biblical curiosities. They symbolize a breach in cosmic order a moment when divine beings crossed into human reality, altering it forever. Their presence challenges traditional theology. It blurs the line between angels and men, gods and mortals, and it suggests that there's much more to human history than we've been told. Whether they were real giants, spiritual hybrids, or symbols of lost knowledge, the Nephilim remain a powerful and haunting image, a reminder that there are forces and stories that exist just outside the light of mainstream belief. If you've made it this far, I want to know what you think. Do you believe the Nephilim truly walked the earth? Or were they just metaphors for something deeper, perhaps hidden within ourselves? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and remember, the occult is not that which is hidden. It's that which only a few dare to seek.